Our school encourages a lot the recycling plan. So every year we like change the recycle bins. We have the organic, the plastic, and the others. So we basically have them like in really statistic points. For example, out of the cafeteria, or when you're walking from down the cafeteria, you have to like throw trash. So it's like a logistic where the bins are. So we said when we go, we did have to like take the organic trash and like separate because there were plastics and some things that were not.
Who does that?
Yeah, me, Harry.
You too.
Okay.
An expert.
Also, we work with the primary teachers. They are extremely getting into this project. They help us by organizing, and we put the microorganisms in, so it turns.
Yeah.
So
Primary teachers are teaching a lot, like the students that are little, on how to recycle. So like the little kids love recycling here.
Yes,
So they're very enthusiastic
sometimes
about
they
it.
help more than secondary.
Yes, because as they're little, they can have like a better learning process and more simple and make fun activities so they can like relate to this type of project. So the primary teachers would give us their organic trash from their lunch boxes since they eat at their class. They have the three different types of recycle in the class. So they would give it to us. We would separate if there were any, like one that was there, and then we would put it into the compost.
Yeah.
Raise the microorganisms, mix it with the sawdust, and a little bit of water.
Yeah, and from this we were like thinking of doing an extra, like selling the soil and doing an extra fund for the school or help the cafeteria have a plantation.
Yeah. Like we're just a year in this, and we like really dream big about having the school to be able to grow its own crops, based on like just reusing and reusing and reusing. If we could do that, that would be our biggest goal. Yeah. So we started little by little, and now we're gonna do the hang gardens again since it's the season for tomatoes. And yeah. Any more questions? Yes.
This might be more of a comment than a question. I heard a soil scientist speak one time about soil and how complicated it is.
Yes.
It might be kind of a future study from a more academic perspective, where you could go with your project. And first he had just a tremendous difficulty finding soils that were, not disturbed by humans and altered.
Yes.
He went to Alaska and found his soils that he studied and suggested that, there's so much going on in those soils that we don't even understand yet.
Exactly.
Beyond these microorganisms.
The teacher who helped us now is out of the school, his name was Greg, and he was like really into this investigation of the soil, and we would just look at him and he would say, this has soil, this little particles and everything. We were like, what? Yeah, and like he was like really crazy about soil, and then we learned from him, and we saw that soil is actually a magnificent type of material, because if you saw our quote, that Franklin D. Roosevelt said that if a society destroys its soil, it destroys itself, because soil is the form of life in little mini grams.
I don't know, John, you studied soils, or do you have any insights into this?
Well, I think you have the geologic soils, which are mineral soils, and they are different depending on where they came from. So that's why studying the geomorphology of soils is important. And then you have the accumulation of organic matter, which is essentially what you're studying here. But most soils are a mix of geologic materials and organic materials. Very few soils are 100% organic materials. But when you go into the rainforest, it's interesting because if you go into the rainforest, you're actually not walking on the ground. You'll start to sink, and you'll notice that there's huge amounts of organic matter everywhere. And so that, in a way, is it. But the root systems of the plants are in the geologic materials, and they're fed by microorganisms rather than actually by the soil itself. So there is a transmission method for nutrients and also water into plants. So there's a very fascinating, long,
Complicated.
It's complex, but it's not ununderstandable. So you can understand how this works. So it's called the rhizosphere. So around the root systems, you have beneficial microorganisms, which are similar to what you have in your gut. So you have beneficial microorganisms that you live with